The Kawasaki ZX-4RR, everyone. This is the 2024 model, and what a privilege it is to have a go on this revolutionary little bike. I say little, it's packing a massive punch. Massive thank you to Completely Motorbikes in Gloucester for letting me have a go on this bike for you guys. And today we're going to be going over what it's like to ride from an average rider's perspective, what there is to love about it, what there is not to love about it, and what it's like for everyday use, because I think this has a real niche. You know, this is a proper sporty little bike. So this bike is quite a revolutionary motorcycle because, I mean, well, I thought that this was going to be replacing the ZX-6R, but of course that was wrong. But we still have this awesome little bike. This is a race bike in a really teeny tiny package, and I'll tell you what, I think it's absolutely perfect for street riding. If you want a race sporty like experience and you don't want to be getting speeding tickets all the time, well, this might be the bike for you. All right, let's go ahead and see how she sounds, shall we, first of all? Honestly, I think she sounds pretty damn good. And this is the total stock edition, the base model. Takes a little bit of time to spool up. Here we go, you ready? What a great little sound. I think this bike has a lot to offer, man. Considering that it is a small inline four, it's a 4-cylinder motorcycle. This redlines at 16,000 RPM. I mean, I don't know what it tops out at, maybe 16.5 or so. Absolutely ridiculous. And the first thing I noticed is how light this bike is. I mean, this weighs less than 200 kilograms wet, a lot less than 200 kilograms wet. And I mean, okay, it doesn't have a lot of torque, but once it starts to spool up, you do get a nice little bit of power out of this bike. I've only been on this bike for a few minutes, but so far she's been absolutely fantastic. That is wicked. Okay, not a lot of torque. Not a lot of torque on this bike. I think that's a given. But that experience is pretty damn sweet. The fact that, yeah, you can redline this bike and not be breaking all of the speed limits. You know what? I think that's genius. Because this is a proper little race bike experience that you're getting here. It's not like a knockoff experience, you know, as you could argue with like parallel twins and things like that. And this bike is supposed to be producing more horsepower than the Ninja 650, but that is a parallel twin and it's producing a lot more torque. And that is probably the thing that you're going to be missing out on the most on this bike, is a decent amount of torque. But still, it's not a scary experience either, because I mean, I know that torque has that kind of scare factor behind it. So yeah, I mean, as like a beginner super sport, you can't really go wrong with this thing. I think that's, and the thing is as well, as I'm riding it, the ergonomics actually aren't as crazy as I thought they'd be. I thought they'd be really hunched over and really uncomfortable and really cramped, but actually, no, this bike is surprisingly comfortable, and the seat is a bit hard, but it's not too bad actually. You could do quite some serious journeys on this bike, I think, if you really wanted to. And I don't think you'd have too many issues comfort-wise. Right, but let's talk some specs, shall we? So this is the 2024 Kawasaki ZX-4R. It's running a 399 cc inline 4, which is still kind of sounds crazy to me. Which is producing about 70 to 75 horsepower at the crank, according to spec sheet numbers, estimated spec sheet numbers. And it's producing around about 35, 36 newton meters of torque, all whilst weighing in less than 190 kilograms wet. What an awesome little spec sheet that is, man, for this bike. And it really encourages you to use all of the revs, because you're not going to be breaking all the speed limits. That's really funny. Oh, it sounds like you're going a hell of a lot faster than you actually are. And I hear these bikes are selling like hotcakes as well. A lot of them are sold out in the UK, so if you can find one, go ahead and get one. But it is worth mentioning that as the bike sits, it's not A2 compliant, alright? So if you are looking for an A2 bike, this is producing way too much horsepower for you. However, you might be able to get it restricted, I don't know. But that might be an option for you if you were looking at a bike like this. But the Ninja 400, on the other hand, is A2 compliant. So that might get some people a bit confused. The Ninja 400 is a parallel twin, 400cc. This is an inline 4. So it's a 4-cylinder as opposed to a 2-cylinder. In terms of like performance, there's not actually going to be too much difference really between real world performance between this, the ZX-4R, or double R should I say, excuse me, and the Ninja 400 really, in a real world kind of sense. 0 to 60s are going to be pretty similar, quarter mile time is going to be pretty similar as well. This should have a much higher top speed though, so not that that really matters for street use, but if you're looking to do track days, well, I mean, this might be a pretty decent option for you if you're able to keep the bike in that power band as you're going through the bends, really carry that speed into the corner as well. This might be a pretty decent little track machine. Do you know what? I'm pleasantly surprised at what this bike kind of has to offer. I wasn't really 100% sure what I was going to be getting myself into with this bike, but it does of course have a ram air scoop as well, so you get a little bit of extra horsepower at the top end. But I really didn't know what to expect. I mean, first of all, I thought it was going to be far more kind of uncomfortable. Ergonomically wise, I really didn't think this bike was going to have a lot going for it, but it has a surprisingly decent ergonomic setup, at least from my experience. It's easier than the ZZR 1400, which is considered kind of like a really ultra sporty tourer. This bike is more comfortable. Yeah man, you do get a lovely little bump in torque after about 12,000 RPM. That's sick. I mean, filtering on this thing is a doddle as well. Because it's really small. I say that. It doesn't feel like a massively small bike. That's an oxymoron, isn't it? It doesn't feel ultra small. It does feel a little bit bigger than the 400 kind of cc would imply, but also it doesn't look that small either, at least when you compare it to the likes of the Ninja 650. It's very comparable in size. And the fact that this thing has got as much horsepower, or more horsepower should I say, than the Ninja 650, that's quite an impressive feat, considering that this bike is missing out on 250cc of displacement. But it's all that RPM. That RPM is really this bike's kind of trump card. Alright, let's see what this bike's made of, shall we? My God. What are you doing in the outside lane, man? I'm trying to do a speed test. Hopefully when this guy pulls over, we'll actually be able to really give it to him. Come on, pull over, move over. Woo! I'll tell you what, that's great fun. And the fact that it's got that quick shifter as well, that does make a huge difference. The Ninja 400 doesn't have a quick shifter. That is wicked. You've got so much headroom. It really kind of encourages you to just pin the throttle back. Oh wow. I love it, man. That is awesome. I don't imagine I'm going to be getting decent fuel economy though, riding it like that all day long, and I suppose it is another part of the argument here between this and the Ninja 400. The Ninja 400 almost certainly have a much better fuel economy than this bike would. But he's producing more torque, so yeah, I don't know, it's difficult. The brakes are really good. I didn't pull them that hard, but they bit pretty well. This is awesome. And the fact as well, you've got a custom rider mode with this bike as well, and you got the traditional kind of TFT that Kawasaki are putting on a lot of their bikes now. It's a solid TFT, I can't really complain whatsoever. But, well, I mean, we'll be turning off traction control in a moment, but this is feature rich for this kind of class of motorcycle, and they're going for less than 10 grand, by the way. Which might sound quite expensive, but considering how much you're getting, I think that's a pretty decent price. But it is more expensive than a Ninja 650, and you could make the argument that because you've got that extra torque going, you've got that same display as well, might not have the same kind of feel in terms of sportiness than Ninja 650 as this, but you could argue that that is a better buy, and I think it's going for less than this bike is. But still, what? I mean, I'm kind of speechless, really. Yeah, I think £9,000, £9,500 on the road, brand new for one of these things. That's a pretty good deal. I mean, how much is the ZX-6R going for these days? 12, 13 grand? Then you've got the ZX-10R going for pretty much 20 grand, or 17 and a half, 18 grand, something like that. Not a lot of torque, but then again, I don't expect there to be a lot of torque on this bike, to be honest with you. It's all about that top end horsepower. And you feel it as well. You really do feel a lovely bump in power when you start getting above 10,000 RPM. And it sounds awesome. It sounds really good. We're going to be doing some 0 to 60 runs in a little bit, so we'll see how this bike handles itself 0 to 60, but I don't imagine it's going to be that great. Maybe between 4 and 5 seconds, something like that, I suspect. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. But honestly, this ergonomic setup is surprisingly comfy. It is a little bit more sporty than the Ninja 400, but it's not that far off, you know. That sound is very addictive. I don't know, man, these kinds of bikes, they might be the future, where emissions and things like that are restricting bikes more and more, restricting the bigger bikes. This might be the way that motorcycle manufacturers are able to keep selling these kinds of bikes, these really ultra sporty bikes. And I was surprised when they brought back the ZX-6R, I truly was. I have a feeling as well that the ZX-6R is going to feel much more like a race bike than this in a lot of ways. It's going to feel far more sporty ergonomically. It's going to be more uncomfortable. I don't know, maybe not, but the ZX-10R certainly was that's a serious kind of racing position that you're sitting in on the ZX-10R, and I kind of was expecting a similar experience on this bike, but no, this is actually very approachable for an average rider, surprisingly so. Yeah, I mean, going in fifth, you know, yes, it's going to be 5th, 6th of these kinds of speeds. Yeah, you're going to be doing quite well, I think, economically wise, fuel economy, but you're not going to get an immediate kind of punch in torque. I mean, you got to be in first gear, basically. Yeah, you got to be in first gear to get a nice immediate push of torque from low speeds. Got a nod. That's always nice to get a nod from riders when you're on a little bike. This is great. I mean, we'll see if we can do a little bit of overtaking here. I mean, it should be fine, but I might have to drop down a gear. I hope that that's adjustable, the flashing, because 6,000 RPM and things start flashing. I mean, it might be a bit of a distraction. It's not the same with every bike. I mean, it's able to keep up with this BMW Z4. Is it Z4? I think so. Woo! Right, let's see if we can do an overtake here. Woo! You do have to pin it. You do have to pin it 100% to get a decent overtake in. You do have to drop down maybe a gear or two, but the fact you have that option on this bike and you're not going to over rev it, wicked, man. Absolutely wicked. Right, going to see if we can do a quick 0 to 60 run here. Maybe we'll fit in a couple if we have the room. See if we can find a decent bit of tarmac here. Right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Okay. So quite a slow start, but once it gets into that power band, it's good. It's good. I can kind of understand now why this bike doesn't have the best kind of 0 to 60 times, because from a dead start where you don't have that torque to get you going, it takes kind of like half a second or so for the bike to really pick up steam. Well, yeah, that's probably where the issue lies with this bike. But we'll pull in and we'll try and fit in another one if we can in the way of this tractor. All right, looks like we're going to have to keep it with traction control on, unfortunately. It shouldn't make too much of a difference. All right, here we go. A little bit of a wheelie. Okay, so traction control did kick in there a little bit from the wheelie, just because I was trying to keep those RPMs as high as possible. A lot of fun, man. And I think that's what this bike is all about. It's all about that fun factor. This bike has it in spades, honestly. What a load of fun this bike is to ride. And the fact that it really encourages you to pull on that throttle back and really make use of that entire rev range. I mean, it's awesome, especially when you consider that, yeah, it's not too bad in speed. It has got quite long gears, but you're not going crazy quick like you would be on a ZX-6R or a ZX-10R. I will say the quick shifter is a little bit jerky. So like the sweet spot in RPMs is probably between 8 and 10 for the quick shifter, but if you're in really high RPMs and use the quick shifter, it will judder, it will jerk. But even so, what a bike, man. What a bike. Absolutely fantastic. And personally, I think it's worth every penny. At least if you are looking for that kind of sporty race bike kind of experience, well, you're not going to go wrong with this. It's seriously good. There's not a lot of vibration either through the handlebars and through the foot pegs. It does of course start to vibrate as you get higher up in the revs, but it's not so bad. Thing is, I kind of expect a little bit more vibration from bikes that produce more torque, if you know what I mean. Significantly more torque than this. But just to kind of demonstrate the ergonomics of this bike, alright? So, let's just speed up a little bit. So this is me sitting upright. the handlebars are not far away from you. Very, very comfortable. Surprisingly comfortable. And surprisingly versatile, I think, is perhaps a really good word to describe this bike, because yeah, you're getting that sporty engine, but it's not at the cost of ergonomics, or at least not as much as you'd expect. What an awesome little bike. Yeah, this is a small bike that does pack quite a big punch. And I mean, as always, traditionally with sport bikes, you really do have to rev them out to make the most of them. Let's go down this way. But with this bike, it's not outside the realms of possibility as it is with the vast majority of other super sports. And I think that is perhaps one of the most attractive things about this bike, is the fact that you can use it as a sporty motorcycle and it's not going to put you in prison. I mean, of course, once you start going through the gears, then yeah, you might be in some trouble there. But in first gear, which is where you get the most amount of torque and arguably the most amount of fun, first and second gear, not too bad. Right, shall we hear this engine for the last time? Here we go. That's wicked. I love it, man. Love the sound of this little bike. What an experience. Like I kind of said earlier, I really didn't know what to expect on the ZX-4RR, but it is a really sporty, fun, high revving, high kind of adrenaline experience if you get it up in the higher RPMs. Lower RPMs, you're not going to be getting a lot of torque, but it does have power towards the top end and a lovely amount of it to boot. Everything is kind of adjustable as well, I think. The forks. Okay, so it looks like you've got preload adjustable forks, but that's about it. And I imagine on the Shark you've got a little bit more customizability. Let's have a look at the other side. Yeah, so you got tension, compression, preload. Yeah, so you've got all of the adjustment you need on the rear Shark there. Honestly, I think this bike would be a really good little contender as a race bike. But the fact that it is so usable on the street and you haven't got to worry so much about, you know, speeding and things like that. But yeah, I've had an awesome experience on this motorcycle. I've absolutely loved every second I've had with this bike today. But you guys let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Apparently these bikes are pretty popular. So if you own one of these, let me know down in the comment section what you think of it. And as always, leave that like, hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you all in the next video. Everyone take care, ride safe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell as well so you don't miss any more of our reviews going forward. Thank you.